Hello, everyone. My name's Rick Mullinax, and this is Burn After Reading. Joining me today is Mary, or you might know her as True Crime is NY. If you don't, please go to her channel and subscribe. She has some really good content over there, and it's worth checking out. Now, today we are going to have a conversation about the West Memphis Three case. It's very controversial and it's polarizing. Everyone who is subscribed to my channel, you know where I stand on it. I believe they're guilty. Mary, though, well, she thinks they're innocent. I really appreciate her coming on and discussing the case with me. And I want to make it really clear we're not here to tear each other's throats out. We're not here to try to one up each other. I don't know if I can change her mind. I don't believe she can change mine. But we want to show that a civil conversation can be had. Will we be successful? Well, let's find out. But before we get started, I want to ask all of the commenters to please be respectful to both of us. Don't say mean and nasty things. Just express your thoughts on innocent or guilt. That's okay. But don't sling mud at us. Can you do that? Great. So, Mary, thank you for joining me today.
No, thank you so much for having me.
So, let me ask you, what made you decide to start a true crime channel?
So, I have been into true crime for quite a while now. Well, first, it started in high school where I was more into just serial killers and I would watch a lot about them. And then eventually, I discovered, I believe it was back in like 2015 or so, I discovered a channel called Trace Evidence Podcast by Stephen Pacheco, and I really loved his channel and I liked the content. I thought he made great quality content. He was very, detailed and very well researched. That's what I think about his channel. And there was times, unfortunately, where Stephen would take long breaks. So I was like, I'm really into this now. I'm like, I like this. But he's not posting. So I started looking into different true crime channels, which further made me want to, look into all these different true crime cases and just, get into that community. And a big part that also played in it as well was I actually went to Crime Con in what was it? Yes, 2023 Florida. Yeah, last year. It was in Orlando. And I recommend you going for sure if you've never went. It's a great environment. You get to pretty much speak to a lot of the podcasters that decide to go anyhow. And you get to see, special guests, whether it's people from the victims' families or people who are related to the killer, for instance. I remember seeing BTK's daughter there, and she was doing a whole spiel on stage about her father. And just the environment, I was just I felt like so at home. And there were some people that I discussed things with, which further got me into true crime. So I decided I was like, you know what? If all these people can do it, A, B, C, and D, and mind I tell you, like I said, I was looking into different channels. I said, why can't I do it? And I was like, I want to get my opinion out there too. I want to know what people think. Will they agree with me? Will they disagree? So that's basically how I decided to take that first step because everybody knows it's rather difficult to start a YouTube channel and build a fan base, but you have to start somewhere. So that was what I decided to do back in January. So I'm about like 5 months into it, but I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm learning more and more about cases that I didn't even know about. And yeah, that's pretty much how it all began. And that's how I got the channel going.
Well, I can tell you your channel's growing really fast. I mean, it's doing really well. So I'm excited for you about that. And it seems like you're also very open to dissenting opinions, and that's also a good thing. And speaking of dissenting opinions, how did you hear about the West Memphis Three case?
Yes. So it was actually just a coincidence. What happened was I decided to go on the internet a while back, way before I even
Mhm.
started my channel, to look up, like the most infamous cases of true crime in like the United States. And I remember seeing the name the West Memphis Three, and I'm like, I mean, with all due respect, I'm not trying to offend anybody. I thought the name sounded really cool. I was like, oh, what's that about? So I decided to look it up, watched several different videos from different true crimers, did some online research, so on and so forth. And I just from the beginning did not believe that they should have been convicted. I felt like this was definitely a botched investigation, if you want to even call it an investigation. I don't, I, It was just tunnel vision in my eyes. And also the whole satanic panic thing played a colossally huge role in this. So maybe if this was done at a different time period, maybe those three wouldn't have even ended up in jail. And also, there's no DNA, in my opinion. Well, actually, no, there is no DNA really at the crime scene pointing to any of the individuals. And there's just a lot of um, things that I'm questioning about why certain things weren't looked into. Like there's several people that weren't looked into. They did not cover all their bases. So that highly, highly made me doubt that they were guilty in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, and yeah, I'll explain how I first learned about it. I actually learned about it in the summer of '96, and it wasn't just from watching it on HBO. MTV was really promoting it because Metallica was their music was going to be in the documentary, and that was kind of like, I mean, Metallica was huge. I loved Metallica. I still do. I think Metallica has great music. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, so Metallica's music is going to be in this documentary. They're at that time they weren't really known to license out their music that way. And this was about a subject that at that time I thought was interesting. This whole idea of something that is a satanic ritual, because I was reading Anton Zander LaVey too, the Satanic Bible, not because I believed in it, but I was interested in it. I was interested in learning. And what most people don't realize about that kind of Satanism is that they don't actually believe in Satan. Like they don't actually believe in a deity. And so I always call it like atheism for dress up, you know? And so,
Yeah.
but I still thought, I'm like, wow, okay, this is really interesting. The concept, I mean, I didn't like the fact that anyone was murdered, clearly, but I was like, okay, yeah, I'm interested in it. And what's weird is that it became a family event. I watched it with my mom and dad, and they split it into two parts when they did premiere it, if I understand correctly. Or maybe we were watching replays of it, but they still split it up. And we watched it, and you know, I didn't really think about it too critically, just kind of was absorbing it, you know. I figured at the end of it, like, oh, okay, they're guilty, but I didn't have like any strong sense or belief. I just basically went along with the ride that the filmmakers were putting me on. And then after that, I didn't really think about it much after. And then in 2000, I think it was summer of 2000, I remember just late at night, just channel surfing, and with cable, they had that preview guide that you would just see what was coming on. And I saw scrolling that within, like, I don't know, maybe within a half hour, Paradise Lost 2 Revelations was going to air. And again, I don't know if it was a premiere or if it was a replay, but my thoughts were like, oh my god, there's another one. Like, why is there another one? Because I wasn't paying attention with what was going on after the film. So yeah, naturally I wanted to watch it, and clearly they had a much more of an innocent stance. It was more of an advocacy piece. And of course, watching John Mark Byers do his thing, he didn't do himself any favors. I started to
Yes, yes, I
now,
agree with that.
yeah, and at this point, I didn't know if they were innocent or guilty, but at least it gave me the see that they might be innocent. And that John Mark Byers, he acts really weird. Why is he acting so weird? I don't understand it. And it was at that time, it was very compelling to me. And from that time up until their release and, of course, Paradise Lost 3, I would occasionally, you know, focus on what was going on. And as it was going, I was more inclined to believe in their innocence. And then after they took the Alfred plea deal and they were released, I still paid attention. I was listening to what was being said about Terry Hobbs. I was starting to believe that maybe he was the real killer. And then I want to say maybe 2013, 2014, um, I started looking at message boards and I was starting to hear a side that I never really heard about, and that was the side of their guilt. And I'm like, wow, there are people that still think they're guilty. That's wild. And I would listen to their rationale. I would, well, I should say read because it was a message board or a forum. I was reading what they were saying, what their logic was, and some of it was pretty hard for me to disagree with. So it made me want to look more into it. And I want to give shout outs to people like the West Memphis Three Facts, West Memphis Three Revelations blog, West Memphis Three Truth, um, Sean Wheeler, Adam Gavin, Fred Walsh, of course, Lisa O'Brien. I did listen to what they were saying, listening, reading, whatever, what have you. And it made me dig into the Callahan files. And while anyone can read everything that's in there, it's a lot, and it's a lot to retain when it comes to memory because there's so much. And not all of it is compelling reading, some of it is daunting. But I finally got to the point where I'm like, they're guilty. They're not innocent. And that made me feel and I felt angry about it because I felt like I was duped. Like I was duped to believe in their innocence. And so that's where I am with that. And so now, one of the most troubling aspects to me is how the pro West Memphis Three narrative claimed that Damien, Jason, and Jessie were targeted because they were poor white trash, looked different, dressed in black, listened to heavy metal music, read horror novels. And that simply isn't true. It's also disturbing that, what gets left out of these documentaries, books, podcasts, media segments in support of the West Memphis Three. And there's this thing you mentioned before that the West Memphis Police Department, they had tunnel vision for Damien. And yes, he was an early suspect. There's no doubt about it. But the West Memphis Police Department looked into various exhausting leads. And if you would allow me to share part of Jason's attorney's, Paul Ford's opening statement, I think it proves that they didn't have tunnel vision. They were kind of, as you would say, blindfolded. So he says they went door to door in this community, knocking, asking, "What have you seen? What have you heard? Can you tell us anything to help?" You'll see that they were looking for transients. They were going to homeless shelters, not only in the West Memphis community, but in Memphis, looking for someone who might be passing through. West Memphis is a trucking community that makes and has tremendous industry based in trucking. They began to look for a trucker who may be passing through. The evidence will show that they went and obtained fuel records from the truck stops in the area to see who might be passing through and maybe bought truck fuel. You'll see that they were looking for a veteran, that they went door to door looking for a veteran, someone with military experience, because some of the things that they had found led them to possibly believe they were looking for a veteran. They began to look for known sex offenders, but they weren't looking for a 16-year-old boy, in which he's referring to Jason. The West Memphis Police Department, they were in charge of the investigation, but they needed help. They didn't have any answers to the questions, so they enlisted the help of Crittenden County Sheriff, um, the Crittenden County Sheriff Department and all of their forces. They enlisted assistance from the Arkansas State Police and their criminal investigations. They elicited assistance from the police in Memphis, Tennessee. They began to receive information and try to help and get clues from police departments all over the country. And they also began looking for assistance from the FBI. They began to try and go throughout the community with the questionnaire from the FBI to determine what is the profile of the killer. And to me, right there, that smashes the whole myth that law enforcement was only out to get Damien. And in the book Law and Disorder, FBI profiler John Douglas wrote Damien and Jason had no indicative violence in their pasts. And while Jessie was known as a hothead, he channeled his aggression in pursuits of things such as wrestling. Though the three were raised in a culture in which corporal punishment was common, none were abused. In some, he found nothing that the behavioral backgrounds of Damien, Echols, Jason Baldwin, or Jessie Misskelley, nothing to suggest that they were guilty of the murder. And, Douglas was hired by the West Memphis Three legal defense for his apparent expertise. And while admittedly, I am no expert in anything, I would like to make the case that proves John Douglas is incorrect. Is there anything you want to add to that? Anything you want to disagree with?
Based off everything that you've said to me thus far, yes. I'm not going off the fact that they're guilty just because of tunnel vision. I think that's a part of it. That the tunnel
Mhm.
vision came later on. I know about the prior investigations that they did with the
Mhm.
transients and the veterans, but they, according to my research and what I have read from, I actually do you well the Callahan files. I do believe it's a reputable source, and also not just that. I did research from other different websites, different forums, so on and so forth. The West Memphis, the first movie, the second, the third, none of those. No, I don't go by any of those movies because movies are, directors change things. They want to play, edit around with things. They're going to use things that they believe will, fit the best narrative. First, the West Memphis Three was guilty in the first movie. Then the second movie, Mark Byers was guilty because he acts weird. Oh, he's
Mhm.
a weird guy. Yes, he is a weird guy, but I believe he's somebody that seeks attention, and he knew he was never going to get attention. He was already in his middle age at that point. He just was a weird attention seeker, in my opinion. And then they came to the conclusion that it was Terry Hobbs. So I definitely did not go off of the movies. Those are just movies to me, so
Mhm.
that's nothing. Um, so and from what I know, only 2/3 of the neighborhood was actually asked from door to door about,
Mhm.
did you guys see anything? Did you hear anything? And people basically said no. And so they should have looked into a bigger capacity of the area, in my opinion. And they even admitted that once uh, there was several people that didn't even answer the doors that they went to, and they never bothered to even go back to ask those people about it. So I know that that's a little, I think that's just them being lazy, according to my opinion. And the truck stop thing, I heard that there was a lot of shady things going on there, like drug related. So I'm not really sure about the whole drug stop thing. I'm not really leaning towards the drug stop being involved in this whole ordeal. And another thing that I know, really, in actuality, the whole smoking gun was the supposed confession of Jesse Misskelley,
Mhm.
and he's not a bright bulb. Obviously, we all know that. They said his IQ is anywhere between 70 to 72. So I felt, after the work that they did do prior to having their eye out for Damien and Jesse and whatever Jason, that they had the perfect person fall into their laps. They were already, getting a lot of crap from the people of West Memphis. They wanted it solved, rightfully so, but they were getting a lot from people. And the police department, of West Memphis even said, like, we're not equipped to do this. Like, this is not like our expertise. We never really uh, got into homicides. They said that came out of their own mouths. And I think you mentioned, was it alibis that you said that also was a part of the reason why you were swayed?
Yeah, and that's something that we will get into. I do have it as a list.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm trying to. What was the last? There was something else that you mentioned. I'm sorry that you made such. you spoke very articulately about everything, but I'm trying to remember what else it was that you said. But yeah, based off of Jesse Misskelley's confession is garbage to me,
Mhm.
because I feel as if, well, if somebody is making a confession, you know, like I don't know if I ever really dwelled on this on my own channel. I didn't. I did a brief little video on my own channel, but that was one day out of boredom, and I was really actually pissed off watching something about, the West Memphis Three. So I just did that out of just like an instantaneous. It was at the moment. It wasn't planned. Nothing. I didn't even edit the video. Um, so what they usually do, true crime or crimes in general, police departments, what they do is they look into families first. Whenever someone dies, they always look at the families first and thoroughly investigate them, and then they get, stuff about them. That was not done. The family wasn't looked at first at all, which I believe that they should have, because there was people in the boys' families that were not of good characters, and I'm sure you know already who I'm talking about. And they had a violent past and present, like Terry Hobbs, for example. According to his wife Pam, he was terrible. She said that he was violent. She said that he was just a miserable person. Their marriage obviously was lacking. He didn't help her with anything, and he beat what's his name, Stevie, frequently. And and like I was also saying was Jesse, the fact that the stories kept changing makes that confession not credible. But it fit the narrative, and they were like, oh, well, we got a confession. We got to go work off this. All right. We don't got to look anymore. Let's get this out and over with. We got these dudes, whatever. But in general, and, if anyone in the true crime community or, criminal profilers, detectives, police, anyone of that realm, they will interview, like, let's just say a kid gets raped and killed in the area. They're going to go look at all the child predators in the area, for instance. That's a good place to start. And some people, they confess because they like attention. This is very known. A lot of criminals do this, even when they didn't have anything to do with the crime. And then once the police officers or the detectives, whoever it is that's interviewing them, hear things about the crime scene and the scenarios that did not happen, they're like, okay, get out of my, they're like, get out of here. You're full of crap. So why wasn't, so I look at it that way. That's why Jesse's confession is not credible. He lacked intelligence. He even it said himself he was there for the reward money. He did not go there out of remorse, out of the kindness of his heart. He went like a month later. His father pushed him to go, and then things started escalating from there. So, that is what I could say thus far. Like you said, I have a whole different list of things I could go on about, but just to summarize, some main points. But like I said, Jesse's confession was the smoking gun for them, because there was no DNA found at the evidence at the crime scene, leading back to the boys. So you need DNA. And to put an 18-year-old on death row, I don't care how weird he is, I don't care how much black he dresses in or whatever it is. Damien was an angry kid. He said it. He was angry. He was hostile. He did have mental illnesses, but that's all. That doesn't mean that you're going to be a murderer and a rapist or whatever it is. That doesn't mean anything. I know plenty of people who have mental, disabilities, and they're angry as hell. To be quite frank with you, I'm one of those people. I get angry very easily, actually. So I also try to empathize. I didn't suck anyone's blood like Damien did. I mean, that's something completely different. And I know he was, into Aleister Crow and so on and so forth. But those are not good enough reasons to put an 18-year-old person on death row. I don't, that was completely, that I found ridiculous. And I found the police department, the judges, and the judges are, that's a load of crap to me too. I'm a big fan of Pat Brown. I do agree with her in most of her profiling. There's a case or two, which includes the West Memphis Three, that I don't agree with her about. But she does say, why are we getting these people, 12 people off the streets that that have no clue about what's going on, what's the correct way to look at a crime scene, do crime analysis. They have no experience in this. They'll get dentists, they'll get engineers, they'll get this, they'll get that. Those 12 people, they are not reliable resources, or them people, for people to say, well, the judges said they were innocent, they were no, they were guilty, so they're guilty. No, that's not true. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of the Casey Anthony trial, and everybody and their mother, I haven't seen one person besides that little TV crew. She did a little thing on Peacock that was released recently. I don't know if you watched it. It was called Where the Truth Lies.
I did,
She,
yes.
yeah, oh, okay. Yeah, she has a little entourage there that says that she's innocent. I don't know how, but anywhere else I've ever looked, everyone says that they're guilty. But the people, from the state of Florida, the people that were selected said there was reasonable doubt, and they let this woman, who clear as day was guilty as hell for killing her child, go. So I really can't, trust judges' opinions as well. I agree with Pat Brown. People should be up there that know what they're doing, not just random people. So that's another thing for me. Um, as well. And yeah, but I don't know if you want to dwell off of anything that I said, if you want to take over from there. But that's what I could think of thus far. But like I said, there's so many other components that I have to go over with you as to why I think that the West Memphis Three did not do it. So is there anything that you want to say in regards to everything that I just stated?
Oh, well, one, I agree with you that we need more knowledgeable jurors. That I would agree with. But also, just to be fair, though, Pat Brown said it, she also still thinks they're guilty, as you know, and I know you disagree with it, and that's fine. So, I will get to the Jessie Misskelley confessions, and we can go a little more into that in a little bit. Um, as far as Damien, I do want to make a point that Damien was a dangerous person, and he didn't merely just suffer from like depression, as he likes to downplay. Exhibit 500, which is an extensive record of Damien's mental health, interestingly enough, this is interesting. Damien blamed Jason Baldwin's legal defense for the mental health history exhibit coming out, but that is actually not true. As I recall, Damien categorized Exhibit 500 as a document written by one woman and submitted by Jason's lawyers to attack him, when Exhibit 500 is, in fact, a collection of documents written by numerous mental health professionals and law enforcement officials. Now, largely from Damien's 3 stays in mental hospitals for suicidal, homicidal impulses in 1992,
Mm-hmm.
and it was compiled by Echols' own defense team and submitted in the sentencing phase in an attempt to secure leniency for him. Now, he also dismissed tales of his mental illness as a work of third and fourth hand rumors, and that's a flat out lie. These are firsthand documentations from mental health professionals that can clearly be found and read on the Callahan website, as we both know. And I believe Damien was headed towards a path of murder, which led to May 5th, 1993, which, included Jason and Jessie. Now, in 1992, he was sent to a psychiatric hospital twice by court order and once by his own parents. His parents were concerned about his involvement in what they described as like witchcraft and devil worship. And I want to stop right there real quick. The occult, witchcraft, and devil worship kind of gets used interchangeably by people who don't understand it. But I just wanted to say that. But anyways, they didn't want him, in their home. In September of 1992, Damien's parents told his mental health physician that they were frightened of him and what he can do not only to them but to other children that reside in the home. And he described himself, and this is him describing himself as homicidal, suicidal, schizophrenic, manic depressive, and sociopathic. And during part of his several month stay with his mother in Oregon in 1992, Damien had been admitted to a psychiatric ward and placed under suicide watch. Now, returning to Arkansas in the fall, Damien briefly entered a juvenile detention center before being transferred to a psychiatric hospital in Little Rock after biting and attempting to suck the blood from the arm of another detainee. He met routinely with a social worker at a mental health center. The social worker reported in her notes that Damien told her he might become another Charles Manson or Ted Bundy. Now, at East Arkansas Mental Health Center, mental health professionals describe Damien's elaborate history of delusions, psychosis, and severe problems with mood and memory. His delusions often were grandiose. He told staff that he was going to influence the world. And if you recall, he said something similar at the end of the first Paradise Lost documentary. And he also reported he obtained power by drinking blood. His moods would really swing from, between euphoria and severe depression. And most of the time, his effect was flat and his face expressionless. Other times, he reported he could do anything. During his worst periods, Damien became psychotic. He felt a spirit was living in him, and that it was put inside him at some point, and the spirit decided to become part of him. And he was the spirit, or this was the spirit of a woman who was killed by her husband. And I believe the name of the spirit was Rosie. And he claimed that drinking blood or licking blood made him feel like a god. And that statement about feeling like a god is interesting because while at trial, he made a backhanded comment about Crowley, thinking that he was a god. He downplayed his influence. When I mean he, I mean Crowley or Crow. See, people call Crowley Crowley. It's kind of like tomato, tomato. I guess it depends where you're from. Ozzy called it Crowley. Other people call it Crowley. But anyways, that's besides the point. Anyways, he downplayed the influence that Crowley had on him. And perhaps because, Crowley thought that the best kind of sacrifice was child sacrifice. And I've heard arguments of people saying that Crowley had a different interpretation of what that meant. But regardless, on the stand, Damien didn't dispute that. And so after conviction in one of Damien's autobiographies, he talked about how like Crowley is a huge influence in his life. There's even a side-by-side picture he posted a while back of him with, like they're kind of like doing some kind of pose of some kind of magic significance. And then May 19th, 1992, Damien was arrested with his at the time girlfriend, Deanna Holcomb, for breaking into a vacant trailer, and they were going to run away together. And at the time of apprehension, they were caught. They were partially dressed. I mean, they were doing some stuff clearly. And according to his arrest report, Damien was charged with burglary and sexual misconduct. That part doesn't make you a killer, no. But while he was waiting in the police, vehicle to be taken to either the juvenile detention or the jail following having been arrested, he witnessed his girlfriend's father aggressively coming towards her as, she waited with police officers. Now, look, understandably, any parent, especially a father, they're not going to be exactly thrilled that she's running away with some dude. And in this case, Damien. And Damien stated that when he was in the car, he was able to work his fingers loose and moved over and was able to slip the safety off the police officer's gun, which was left in the police vehicle. I mean, how utterly stupid, but that's what happened. And Damien freely admitted that he had plans to shoot Deanna's father if he acted in an aggressive manner. He also stated that if he would hit her, he would have blown him away. And next time he will eliminate that person. And of course, even if that were the case, it's excessive to say you're going to blow someone's head off for that. But I believe Damien meant that. And later on, Damien got into a fight with a rival named Shane Divilbus. And, and that was at school because he was now dating his ex-girlfriend, Deanna. She broke up with him and soon went out with Shane, which led Damien to believe Shane had stolen Deanna from him. And Damien threatened to kill him, killed Deanna, threatened to kill several of Shane's family members. Damien threatened he was going to kill him and he was going to rip his eye out. And Damien tried. He actually tried. He jumped on Shane from behind, and Damien had these long fingernails that he would file, and he tried to gouge out Shane's eye. And Damien's ex girlfriend, Deanna, she would later tell police about his involvement in the occult and that Damien was lying when he would claim that he was a white or gray witch. She said that he was actually in a black magic because she was also into it. And Deanna was also involved with Damien in these practices, and that he once told her, he wondered what it would be like to kill someone. And she also mentioned, now this is a rumor, so I don't want to use this as proof, but it still needs to be mentioned that if he had a baby with her and it was a girl, he'd want to sacrifice it. And what the reason why I bring that up is because he does have a drawing, and in the drawing, it's implied that it's a sacrifice of a baby. So while in awaiting, or when he was in jail awaiting trial, he wrote a letter to Gloria Shettles, and she's an employer of Inquisitor, which actually it's called Inquisitor Incorporated, the private investigation firm owned by Ron Lax, and he was working for the Echols defense at the time. And in the following, Damien writes, "Death can't stop me. I would be only the third person in history to raise from the dead. Lazarus, Jesus Christ, Damien. I will prove it very soon. Afterwards, I will come to power and nothing will stop me. I wrote all this down because it's easier than trying to tell people who wouldn't believe me anyway. They will all believe it very soon. Unmask, unmask." And the Red Death held sway over all. Now they take their medicine. They'll all take it and they'll like it, the stupid little shits. Or they'll have their brains backed the fuck out. Fucking idiots. They think we're out to get them all. They peek through the cracks in their doors and act superior. They think we want them all. Well, they'll take their medicine now. And there are other documents that, for example, report animal cruelty, including an incident where several witnesses, including Jason Baldwin's own cousin, Joe Bartosh, reported, he stomped a dog to death in 1992. And while I understand that can be considered hearsay, I don't believe it can outright be dismissed, as we're kind of getting a collection of his threats and his violence and kind of how sick he is. So it's hard to cover everything, and I'm sure I'm forgetting something, and I'll kick myself later for it. But we do have a mentally ill person, in my opinion, fully capable of violence, who threatens to murder people, thinks consuming blood gives them power, and also makes him feel like a god. This here is not mere conjecture coming from the police or town folk who is afraid of a weirdo. This is coming from Damien, his parents, mental health professionals, and social workers. And this is why, if people thought Damien was a freak, it's because he was. And I know to a certain extent, I know you agree with that, but, I think he's a very dangerous freak, and there's just no way of getting around it. Is there anything that you would want to add to that, disagree with, make a point?
Uh, yeah. Well, I can tell you now, I'm not sitting here saying the West Memphis Three is innocent because Damien is perfect. He's actually the least one I feel bad for out of the three of them. He was a arrogant little kid. Well, yeah, well, 18, well, whatever you want to call it. He was arrogant. He and he did say this. He said he loved to scare people. He loved to make people feel uncomfortable. This included the softball game that he told a couple girls, yeah, I did kill those kids. And he later said, I just said that to, scare people. I get a thrill out of it." So, I mean, if we're going to go by things that he said, I mean, we have to look at other things that he said too. So that's still not really good enough evidence for him to be put to death. Like I said, you need hardcore evidence to be put to death. Him being as psychotic as he was, acting, or I know he did do a couple weird things. Absolutely, there's no denying that, and he says that himself. But he was just basically saying, "Look, I was an angry kid. I was poor as hell. The society around me annoyed me, and so on and so forth. But I just don't feel like he was sincere about the things that he was saying. I think he was full of shit, to be quite honest with you. I don't think he meant any of that. I think he wanted to scare people. He wanted to get a thrill out of it. He wanted to feel like he was, Damien the Powerful, So, I mean, that really doesn't say much to me. I understand. Does he look good in the eyes of the law or people in general? Absolutely not. And he did do very weird things like the blood sucking, but he did deny that he ever sacrificed a dog. He said that was a lie, and that he stomped one to death. And he did say that what was it, severe euphoria. Oh, sorry, I blanked out there for a second. There's so much on
That's right.
Damien. Yeah. And he openly admitted his obsession with Aleister Crowley. I say Crowley, I'm one of those. Yeah, but like I said, you need evidence, you need DNA. I don't care how crazy he is, I don't care what he said came out of his flap. None of it means anything, in the core. If we're gonna go by this whole critical law system that we have, you need evidence. Evidence needs to be there. We can't just pick the weird kid out of the town. And it was a small town, and Damien stood out to people, absolutely. So would it have been extremely believable that he could have committed it at first? I would say yeah, because a lot of things that you said were very disturbing. And his parents, they were afraid of him because he did things at home, and he said things to them. Parents are going to always be scared when their children show indications of violent behavior, say stuff to them, do anything that they don't believe in. I don't know how strict his family was on the whole religion concept. That's not really something I looked really into. And the attempted stabbing of the father, or he did stab him, I'm not sure, the one that he attacked. Like I said, that I believe that was done out of aggression, and he wants to be Damien, the protector, in my eyes. And the when it comes to him trying to gouge the eyes out of the his rival. See, jealousy is a very, very powerful thing. It's a horrific thing that could make the most nicest people, who aren't even half as, bad as Damien, do stuff. There are cases out there of people being jealous and murdering someone. It happens. Jealousy can drive you nuts. And, jealousy is a very, very powerful thing. In my opinion, it's made people do horrific things, crazy things. Like I said, people with no violence in their past, they've killed people. There's cases out there. So that's also another thing. But like I said, overall, was Damien a saint? Far from it. Was he an arrogant little prick? Yes, he was. I don't think he was stupid, though. He was stupid for the things that he would say. Another thing about Damien is, uh, well, he wasn't dumb. Like, he wasn't, like, if he took an IQ test, he wasn't dumb. He was not stupid like Jesse was, or slow, whatever you want to call it. I believe that someone like Damien, if he was going to commit this horrible, heinous act, I don't believe he would have done it in West Memphis, where he more than likely would have got caught. Let's just say he did want to do this, or he did do this, because he kept, because when it came to getting arrested, he said he was innocent, right? So if you're killing three little boys in West Memphis, you're more than likely going to, get caught. You're not going to want to risk getting caught. So I feel like if he wanted to act on his urges, he would have did it somewhere farther out, somewhere not in his community. But, that's speculation on my end, based off of, because if he wanted to get, yeah, this glorification is, I'm Damien the powerful, I'm Damien, and I do this, I do that, I sacrifice this. He would want people to know about that, but he kept saying, I'm innocent, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. So, yeah, so that's basically what I think about Damien. Like you said, there'll probably be things that I'll go back on and be like, oof, damn it, I forgot to talk about that. Because, Damien is the main character. We can't lie. That's the first name that comes up when you think of the West Memphis Three. Yeah, so that basically, like I said, Damien, he was a little prick. He said he loved scaring people. He got a thrill off of it. He wanted attention. He wanted to prove to people that he was something that he was not. Yeah, he had mental problems and issues, and he did, there was acts of violence acted on, but I still, like I said, I'll stand on it. There needs to be proof that Damien did it, like solid proof that he killed these boys. And there was nothing that, showed that at the crime scene. And that's if that was where the crimes actually took place, which is another thing that me and you will get into later on. So yeah, but my only question to you now, since we're still talking about Damien a little bit, is do you feel like he should have got life without the possibility of parole like the other two, or you believe yes he should have definitely got the death sentence? Did you agree with that?
Um, what's interesting is that regardless if someone thinks someone is innocent or guilty, say in this case, you know, it's undeniable guilt. Like, let's say, for example, Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy. There's people are going to have a philosophical belief, even if you think someone is guilty, and even if you have that burden of proof, that are still not going to believe in the death penalty. I personally am not a death penalty proponent. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to cry if that's what happens, but I think it's an easy way out. I don't like it. So, whether I agree with it, I think philosophically I disagree with it, but whether he got it or not, like I don't have any strong feelings about that. And I kind of want to go back. So what I mentioned about Damien, you're absolutely correct. What I shared, it was not to be indicative proof of his guilt. What I kind of wanted to show was kind of a profile that he has the capability of doing it as we go on with the story.
Yeah,
Or yeah,
absolutely.
so and I mean, it's not just a kid who is just crying out for attention. Um, like I said, there was legitimate fear of violence. He's also, like I said, some of the blood sucking or licking that he's doing, it's not with consensual partners. Also, there's violence. So you brought up, you know, kind of like that insane jealousy and how that can lead you to do some bad stuff. Well, it's still not a healthy thought to think that, oh, um, if the father of the girl I love does something, I have the justifiable right to kill him because I don't like it. So that's unhealthy behavior. So trying to getting into a fight with someone and then trying to gouge their eye out, you know, it's different. Like that's not just fighting. Like you are trying to rip someone's eye out, and you're saying, "I want to kill you. I want to kill your family. I want to kill my ex girlfriend." It's not very healthy behavior. Now, is that proof or indication that yes, um, he committed this crime? That in itself, no. But we will get there. Now, I would like to move on with Jessie Misskelley. And again, what I'm going to share is not proof of his guilt, but I kind of want to lay out some things which goes into his violent behavior. And, Jessie, look, we both agree. A lot of people, actually, I don't know anyone who disagrees. Jessie isn't considered very bright. Um, but he had long term problems with violent acting out. And while pro West Memphis Three people, they don't shy away that he was hot tempered and that he got into fights, um, they're kind of general about it. And his problems, dated early in childhood. Counseling and hospitalization had been recommended, but there was never any follow through from his parents. There was a book called Blood of Innocence. It was one of the original books on the case. They described a June 1987 report from a social worker based on a court ordered exam. And the social worker quoted Sheila Misskelley, his stepmother, and she is quoted, he gets so mad he's capable of hurting someone. And so we have that. And Sheila Misskelley, told the social worker, I don't think he can control his temper. He needs some help. In fourth grade, he stabbed a fellow classmate in the mouth with a pencil. Jessie liked to fight, and in some cases, he liked to beat up people younger and weaker than himself. And there's a kid, and I'm going to butcher his last name, John Earl Pershek Jr., stated that Jessie took a knife out of his pocket, put it up to his throat, and asked him if he'd like to be dead. Due to an issue where Jessie lied about a sexual encounter with a girl named Tiffany Allen, Jessie later confronted that, he confronted Tiffany and her boyfriend and assaulted them both. Um, and he punched Tiffany in the mouth. And Jessie also, was involved in an incident in which he threw a rock at a little girl aged 5 or 6, hitting her in the head. And, Jessie laughed. He thought it was funny, but it prompted the police to be called. And he was on probation on those charges when he was arrested for the murders of Stevie, Michael, and Christopher. And while the first Paradise Lost gives, a small glimpse into his temper, like when he told his dad, on the call that, man, he was just so mad, he hit the commode in his jail cell and he thought maybe he broke his hand, but the fact that he was moving and it wasn't broke, it was just probably badly sprained. But, we're not given really the full scope of his violent behavior. We just kind of get this general sense. And is there anything about that you would like to add, counter?
Yeah, I mean, if Jesse was so violent and scary, like he had that reputation, right? Not as bad as Damien, obviously, but I know for a fact that he was allowed to babysit other people's children. Like he would
Mhm,
babysit Stephanie Dollars, apparently,
mhm.
and he what you call it he oh yeah, so he was able to babysit children, and yeah, he also had a violent side to him, temperamental, so on and so forth. But due to his intelligence, I do not think that he could have executed this plan, even with the guidance of Damien, the ringleader, because everyone thinks more than well, the people who think that the West Memphis are guilty, they're saying Damien was the leader of this. He's the one that controlled everything, and I don't think that um Jesse and Damien, they weren't also close either. I've seen this in many, many different podcasts, different forums, different, documentaries. Well, take the documentaries with a grain of salt. The Callahan Files, he keeps saying, we were acquaintances. I did know them. Yeah, I seen them around. We knew each other. Hi, hello, whatever, but we were not best friends. So I can't really also due to his violent past, I still can't see, and this is profiling. We're profiling right now based off of that, which is fine. Profiling it goes into everything as a whole, absolutely. But the thing is, I don't think that Damien or Jason could have made him join in on the acts. And according to Jesse, in one of his confessions, and we know he made multiple, he said that he had nothing to do with the violence at the scene, right? He had nothing to
Mhm.
do with the violence. He said that Damien and James or Jason, James and Jason, I keep getting the names mixed up.
No,
Yeah, uh,
Jason. Yeah, it's
yes,
okay.
Jason, yes. Apparently, they were raping the boys
Mhm.
and putting their penises in their mouths, getting BJs, and the reports that they did, the autopsies, they tested the anal cavities, they tested the oral cavities, no indication of rape. So Jesse, he's just dumb. I just think he's dumb. I mean, he clearly is just dumb. Like the IQ is definitely on point with that. And I'm going to get into, Jesse much later on from the profiling aspect of what you're saying about him. Yeah, it's true. But I don't really feel like people would have, been allowing him to babysit their kids and so on and so forth. And I feel like him killing three boys in the middle of the night at Robin Hood's, even for Damien, I think that this would be a horrifically big escalation from the stuff that they did do.
Mhm.
So that's really all I want to say in regards to that.
Okay. And I do agree with you. I do believe that Jesse is dumb. Um, but I do believe that, with that we have a history that he is fully capable of harming a small child, which he factually did. I don't believe it is beyond the scope of what happened at Robin Hood Hills, which I will get in more to that later. You brought up some things and, noted that's something we will talk about. And so I figured we should probably now talk about Jason Baldwin. And out of the
Yeah, that's the
three,
biggest problem. That's the
yeah,
biggest problem. But yes, I'm so sorry.
mm,
Go ahead. You go ahead with Jason.
no, that's okay. So, out of the three, there is less information available about Jason Baldwin's background than, say, as I just mentioned with Damien and Jesse. And, when he was arrested, his friends, his teachers, family mostly described him as shy, mild mannered, artistic. And what ties Jason to the crimes, as you know, and I know you disagree with the confession, but Jesse's confession, also his lack of alibi, Damien telling a girl on the phone that night that he was out with Jason that night, and then Jason's confession with Michael Carson. And the Michael Carson testimony, I will get into that later as well. So everyone agreed that Damien Echols and Jason Baldwin, they were best friends, virtually inseparable. And psychiatric records and witness statements make clear that Damien Echols, circa like 1992, 93, that he was a deranged, violent psychopath with homicidal fantasies. And there's no way of knowing what Jason and Damien talked about in the months leading up to the murders, but it's safe to say that Damien was a bad influence. And on May 26, 2006, Samuel Dwyer, who was a younger friend of Jason's, stated that in an affidavit that after Jason became friends with Damien, he bought a trench coat just like Damien and he started to talk like him as well. And many couples, no matter what the gender, they tend to follow a similar pattern. Two people meet and feel a strong attraction, or they are related and have established an intimate familiarity with each other that allows them to share fantasies, even violent ones. And typically, one is dominant and the other one seduces the other into sharing his or her fantasy. And then and they fantasize and they start to act it out. In the Skylar Niece murders, or Skylar Niece murder, Sheila Eddy and Rachel Shove, they shared that kind of connection. Now, Damien was the dominant personality in this situation, Jason, the admiring follower. And Sheila was the dominant one, and Rachel was the follower. So I'm just kind of giving a parallel. And if he and Damien had never met, I don't believe Jason, I don't believe he would have ever murdered anyone. Most likely Jason wouldn't have either. And I'm sure you got something to add to that, so I'm going to let you have it.
Yeah, so out of the West Memphis three, I really feel bad for Jason because we did go over profiling, which you did have great points on, and these are things that are known. But he did not fit the profile at all. He was known to be intelligent. He got good grades, so on and so forth. The things that you listed, I don't think he would be stupid enough to go into Robin Hood Hills and kill those three little boys. And he just seemed so timid, and he did seem shy and insecure apparently. And this was I'm going to go off topic for a second here. One of the biggest reasons they think that he could have done it was, oh well, he came off as really insecure. Like, I believe the jurors said that or something along those lines. I just do not think that if you are a strong enough character, yeah, he'll get the trench coat. Yeah, he'll hang out with him, so on and so forth. I don't believe being friends with someone can make you do everything that they do, especially something of this capacity. I don't believe it. Like you said, if he wasn't friends for Damien, he wouldn't have even been looked at. He wouldn't even been suspected. So the profiling of Jason as a whole, I don't believe he fits the profile of the killer, and I don't think that Damien had enough influence, or I don't know what people want to call it, or manpower, or I don't think Jason was terrified of him, where he was like, okay, yeah, I'll go along with everything. Out of these three, that's another reason why I'm very doubtful about this case, because of Jason and his profiling and his background. And we're going a lot by, from both guilty party and innocent party. We're going a lot by, he said this, she said that, he said this, she said that. So if we're going to believe in all the guilty stuff that pointed the West Memphis Three to be guilty, why don't we believe in also the good aspects of what people said? Oh, what the kid said, that the one of the kids said that he was what did he do? Sorry,
That's all
I'm
right.
trying to think about, yeah, I'm trying to think about Jason. I get really upset when it comes to him, because like I said,
Mhm.
I feel like he was a complete victim. And the thing with Jason is, Jason was the only one out of the three that was consistent. Not once did he say I was guilty. He didn't do anything suspicious. He was consistent the whole time, never made any confessions, never told anybody out there in his neighborhood that he's gonna be the next Aleister Crowley, that he's sucking blood, and so on and so forth. So Jason being involved in a part of this horrific murders of these boys also is another reason why I doubt that this happened. I don't think Jason has that capability. I don't think Damien has enough influence to make him do that. I'll just use an example of myself. Like I said, I like to empathize with a lot of different stories. Well, to the best of my ability, as much as I could relate to it. Me and my best friend, we are extremely different people. We've been friends since we're 4 years old. I don't know how long Damien and Jason were friends, or I believe they were friends for a while as well. She loves to smoke pot. I hate pot. She loves to wear black. I don't like to wear black. She likes to, go out to these different sort of scenes. I don't like to go out to these different sort of scenes. Best friends can be complete opposites. And my friend is a very smart girl, very, very smart girl. And I feel like if she wanted to try and manipulate me, she could do it, but you can never get me to do, half the things that she does. So I believe, based off of Jason's profiling and his character, I don't think that Damien could have influenced him to do something that severe, especially when the kid has no past of anything violent. So that would be a dramatic escalation. Like, let me, like Pat Brown, for instance, that's one thing that she uses a lot is, people, there's escalation levels. Well, Jason just went to being a straight murderer when he had no indications of being a violent kid, of being a rebellious kid. He had everything going for him. If anything, Jesse just brought him down with him. He threw his name in there. Oh, and of course his affiliation with Damien. So yeah, so Jason's profile and his history also is another reason as to why I am completely doubting their guilt. 100%.
And I will concede to you that out of the three, the evidence against Jason um, is not the strongest. There's certain things that have to link it together. So I will concede that. So now we're going to get into alibis. So
Hmm.
with the, I'm going to go with Damien Echols first. And here's the thing: no one can account for Damien's whereabouts from 5:30 to 9:20 p.m. And I'm going to lay that out. In a 2010 interview with CNN, Damien Echols claimed that at the time of the murders took place, he was on the phone with three different girls. Damien blamed his former counsel for not putting these three girls on the stand. And the murders are wildly believed to have occurred between 6:45 p.m. and 8 o'clock p.m. And in fact, some of the phone girl statements actually place Damien with Jason Baldwin during that time. Now, their statements, how do I put this? So, their statements would not have provided alibis for Damien. So, in fact, they would have provided evidence that actually they would have made better witnesses for the prosecution. And he was out of his home between 5:30 and 9:20 p.m. with Jason Baldwin on the night of May 5th, 1993. And if Damien would have thought that they would have made good witnesses, then he's a fool. And he said three girls, but it was actually four. So I don't know why he said three, but their names are Holly George, Heather Cleat, at least that's how you pronounce her last name, Dominique Tier, and Jennifer Bearden. So Damien claimed he talked to Holly George on May 5th. Holly told the police that she didn't talk to Damien that evening. She said that she spoke with him much earlier in the afternoon, around like 3 p.m. or 4 o'clock p.m. And that doesn't consist with the time of the murder. So it's interesting. He would think that she would have been a witness for him. Damien claimed that he spoke with Heather Cleat on the evening of May 5th, but Cleat said that she'd been unable to reach Damien until 10:30 p.m. She also mentioned that Holly George told her that Damien had been out walking around. And again, not sure why he thought she would make a good witness for him, but he does for some reason. Now, Damien's girlfriend, Dominique Tier, said that she last saw Damien around 5 o'clock to 5:30 p.m. on May 5th. She said that she did not speak with him again until Damien called her at around 10 o'clock p.m. that night. And perhaps the most damaging to Damien's case is Jennifer Bearden. Maybe that's the third one he's trying to leave out. So Bearden told police in a September 10th, 1993 statement that she called Jason's house between 4:15 and 5:30 p.m. on May 5th, 1993. And she says that Jason answered the phone and she talked to Jason and Damien for about 20 minutes or so. And Damien told her that he and Jason were going somewhere and to call him back at around 8 o'clock p.m. When Bearden called Damien's house at 8 o'clock, his grandmother answered. Damien's grandmother told Bearden that Damien wasn't there. In her police statement, Bearden, says that she finally reached Damien at around 9:20 p.m. Now, Damien made some kind of statement that he told his grandmother that, he wasn't there because, I guess Dominique was supposed to be there, and then he called her later. But I'm going to call bullshit on that. Bearden said that Damien told her that he had been out with Jason. He claims that they had been driven somewhere by Jason's mother. Problem is, Angela was at work from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., making it impossible that she took them anywhere. Um, so we also have, I always say this actually complicates the Hollingsworth clan alleged sighting when they said Damien and Dominique, they saw him around like 9:30, 9:40 p.m., considering Jennifer's account of talking to Damien on the phone anywhere between 9:20 and 9:30 p.m. I know it was inferred that Dominique may have been confused for Jason due to the same like body build, long hair, all that stuff. It was also reported that they were muddy. But after thoughtful consideration, I don't know what to make of the Hollingsworth sighting. I think either way you look at it, if one is true and the other one is false, it's damning. It's just, I guess, at this point, pick your poison. And in addition to the May 9th, um, Damien, Jason, and Dominique told police officers that all three had gone to Jason's uncle's house that day, and where Jason mowed the lawn. Damien called his father for a ride. Damien's father picked up Damien, Jason, and Dominique around 6 o'clock p.m. at a nearby laundromat. They drove Jason and Dominique home, and then Damien went home with his father. But now we have on May 10th, Damien told police a different story, that he had been with Jason and Dominique at Jason's uncle's house earlier in the day. He called his mother for a ride. Damien's mother picked up Damien and Dominique, but not Jason, at the laundromat and drove Dominique home. Then Damien, his mother, his father, and his sister all visited the home of Randy and Susan Sanders, where they stayed from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m. This would mean that Damien and Dominique were picked up at the laundromat at around 2 o'clock or 2:30 p.m., not 6 o'clock p.m., as initially stated. And as they stated the day before, so when he got home, Damien talked on the phone with a girl named Holly George at around 11 to 11:30 p.m. But then The same day, Dominique Tier also talked to police. She said that she, Damien, Jason, and Ken Walker were at Jason's uncle's house when Jason mowed the lawn, and Damien's mother picked up Damien and Dominique from the laundromat. That time was about dark or just about to get dark. Sunset was around 7:48 p.m. Dominique says that she called Damien from her home, and he told her that he was tired and he was going to go to sleep. Um, so the police reports adds Dominique's mother stated that Dominique came in when Time Tracks was on TV on Wednesday evening, and Time Tracks started at 7 o'clock p.m. On May 12th, Damien's mother, Pamela Hutchinson, told police that Damien called for a ride from the laundromat at 3:45 p.m. She picked up Damien and Dominique, drove Dominique home, and then arrived with Damien at 4 o'clock or 4:10 p.m. The whole family went to the Sanders home around 6 o'clock, 6:30 p.m., came home an hour later. Damien stayed home the whole night. Pam Hutchison said that she dropped off Damien's prescription at 12:30 p.m. Wednesday and filled the prescription Thursday morning. And then on May 17th, Susan Sanders confirms Pamela Hutchison's account. Susan Sanders stated that on May 5th, 1993, between 6:30 7 o'clock p.m., she left her residence and went to the Splash Casino in Mississippi. Her daughter, Stacy Sanders, told her that somewhere between 7 o'clock p.m. to 7:15 p.m., Damien and his mother showed up at her residence. They stayed for about 15 minutes and left. 2 days later, Damien's mother told her, and when I mean her, I'm referring to Susan Sanders, that the police would come by her house and ask her questions, and told her to remember that her and Damien came to visit on May 5th, 1993 that evening. Also told her that Damien didn't kill those boys. He was with her all night. Now, here's more on the Sanders alibi. I know it's a lot, and to tell you the truth, it's kind of confusing. On May 10th, 1993, Damien's mother, father, and sister all gave statements and told similar stories. Pam Hutchinson stated that she, Damien's father, Joe Hutchinson, and sister, Michelle Echols, were all in the car when they picked up Damien and Dominique at the laundromat at 3:45 p.m. They dropped Dominique at home, then went to a pharmacy to pick up Damien's prescription at 4:30 p.m. All four went to the Sanders home, arriving around 6:45 and staying 30 minutes, then returning home. Damien stayed home and talked on the phone all night. After that, Michelle Echols told the same story. Joe Hutchinson told the same story with the same times, except he couldn't remember if Damien had accompanied them to the Sanders home. When asked who all went with the Sanders, Joe Hutchinson, he hemmed and he hawed. It was me, Pam, Michelle, and if I'm not mistaken, I can't be positive because I'm trying to run this back in my mind, but Damien was with us, but I can't be positive. I can remember the three of us being there. So, two Sanders daughters gave statements supporting the alibi on September 2nd, 1993. Jennifer Sanders, age 11, told police that all four, Damien, Michelle, Pam, and Joe, visited the Sanders home at 7 o'clock p.m. and stayed 20, 30 minutes. She said that she remembered the day because her boyfriend's band concert was the following night. She testified for Echols' defense at trial and told the same story. But now here's the problem. Prosecutors called the school band director as a rebuttal witness, who testified that the band concert had actually taken place Monday, May 17th, 1993. So also on September 2nd, 1993, Stacy Sanders, age 18, told the police that she had been across the street at her cousin's house that evening. She looked out the window around 7 p.m. and saw Damien, Pam, and Joe enter the Sanders home. Then a little later, she saw them leave. Stacy Sanders also had some confusion about the exact date of the visit. She remembered it was the first Wednesday in May because she said her parents went to Splash Casino, but she also remembered it as 2 days before Damien's arrest. Damien was actually arrested 29 days after the murders. So when he took the stand at trial, Damien agreed to the alibi his mother had arranged. Pam, Joe, Michelle picked up Damien and Dominique around 4 o'clock p.m. Later, Pam, Joe, Michelle, Damien visited the Sanders together. Aside from the visit, Damien stayed home all evening. However, the alibi collapsed in his exchange with prosecutor Brent Davis during cross examination. Damien said that the story kind of changes to fit the facts, and Damien agreed. The jury clearly did not buy the Sanders alibi. And just what I mentioned before that, those phone calls that Damien mentioned that are supposed to alibi him, they all fall flat. I know that was a mouthful. I do apologize, but I thought it was important to put together. Um, Thoughts, counters, anything regarding that?
Mm. Yeah. So, I can definitely agree with you on the fact that the alibi thing did not make them look good. Their alibis were kind of trash. That definitely was not a good look for them. But the Hollingsworth, what was her name? So then I don't that's not credible to me because
Mhm,
Narling and her family, they were in a car full of like with her family from what I researched. And the problem was the person being picked up, it was believed to be Dixie Hufford. And
mhm,
Narlene only stated that she was picking up Ricky, which completely contradicts, her story with the prosecution
mhm.
later admitted. And then the prosecution later admitted that they mistook Dominique for Jason. Obvious, the prosecution did say that. And another thing is, you're preluding to the fact that Dominique was with Damien when this all occurred.
No, well, before, yes, before it occurred, but there was different time frames of what was going
Hmm.
on.
Right.
And I actually, like I said, I won't dispute or argue with anyone if they don't find the Narlene Hollingsworth or the Hollingsworth clan thing to be credible, especially if Jennifer Bearden is talking to Damien at 9:20. He can't be talking to her at 9:20 and then she sees Damien and Dominique, or if Jason, if it was a mistake of identity, that's happening at 9:30, 9:40. Well, two of those things can't be true. So if anyone wants to dispute it, I'm not going to argue it.
Mm. Oh
I think
no,
yeah, lends more credibility to Jennifer Bearden's statement, and Damien seems to be a little afraid of that.
right. The alibi thing, like I said, I real the alibis kept switching up and so on and
Mhm,
so forth because I know Damien probably was like, okay, well, I'm going into a deeper shithole, so you got to
mhm,
keep changing the stories. Usually when you're lying, which he very well might have could been, you have to, it keeps continuing. Another thing is, a lot of people can't even recount things that they did even a couple days ago. I mean, I can't. I don't know if
mhm.
you call that memory loss, if you want to call, people like us stupid. I don't know. But that's another thing that I believe played into it. And my only thing is what so according to what was said, this is for the guilty side. They said that apparently the night before, Jason called Jessie and said, "Hey, let's meet up." And that's how it all happened. They met up or whatever. They were all supposed to hang out. And why didn't Jessie mention Darlene in the confession? Why she was like, I mean, I'm sure he would have mentioned her. That her name was not brought up at all. And another thing was that the Hollingworth thing, like I said, I mean, I don't find that to be credible. And the thing is, Dominique said, and this is on record too, that she actually got into a fight with Damien that night because he was out meeting up with three different girls. So I don't know. So that's another thing I heard. So that also makes me kind of be like, oh well, that very may be true. Why would she said that he was talking to other girls, which you also confirmed, and she found out about it, and they got into a huge fight about it towards the later part of the evening. So yes, his alibi is questionable, but then there's other things that I heard, like based off of what I just told you about Domini, that
Mhm.
makes me think that that very well could have happened. And also, why didn't Jesse mention Domini at all? That's another thing that gets me suspicious. And then that's what I believe when it comes to that. My 3 points would be either he didn't remember, he was mixing things up, or yes, he could have been lying. But that's because he could have been lying due to him not remembering, because a lot of people do forget what they do on certain days, unless it's a special day,
Mhm.
like, if it's someone's birthday, you're probably not going to forget what happened that day at that party or whatever it is. So I believe it could be due to, or maybe that night he was, up to something else. But and maybe that's why he didn't want to tell the truth, maybe, about his alibi. That's another thing that people speculated on, is maybe he was up to something else that was no good, not murdering the boys, but maybe there was something else that he didn't want to admit to, or he just simply forgot. And like I said, Jesse never mentioned Dominique at all in regards to these confessions, and then the whole Narlene thing, and then the whole mistaking Jason for Dominique, and then and people in Narlene's family even said that she was an attention seeker, and she was known to exaggerate things a lot.
Mhm.
So yeah, so there's a lot of confusion with that, so I don't really, yeah, the alibis are not solid. I never said that, but it's not the alibis that are making me believe in their innocence. I'm just telling you what I think may or may not have happened, and also what a lot of other people think may or may not have happened, and also what, and then there's a couple facts that I stated, about
Mhm.
Dominique said we got into a fight that night because he was meeting up with three different girls. So that kind of doesn't, go hand in hand with what you're saying. And also, why didn't Jesse mention Dominique at all? So that's basically what I think about that. But like I said, when it comes to the alibis, are they strong? No, they weren't. Absolutely not.
Mhm.
So that's just my point of view.
Right. Well, I believe Dominique wasn't going to sell Damien out, but yeah, he was talking to three different girls. But even when the girls he was talking to, it wasn't at the time of the murders, and those girls, of course, denied, seeing him physically or being on the phone with him around the time of the murders were taking place. As far as Jesse bringing up like Dominique, or you said Darlene, did you mean Narlene at the time?
Oh, I did say Narlene. Did it sound like I said
Oh,
Darlene?
I may have misheard you, but yeah,
No,
I
I
well,
know, I
well,
know.
Jesse,
People.
yeah, if we are to believe Jesse, he left before Damien and Jason. So you know, in this case, I don't know why he would have any mentions of Dominique or Narlene. He wouldn't have had any interaction with them, to my understanding. But but yeah, okay. So since we kind of like have an understanding that the alibis are weak, I would still like to bring up Jason's, and I would still like to bring up Jesse's, just for contextual reasons.
Mhm.
So, Jason, so we kind of have a possible explanation to why maybe, Damien didn't have a good alibi. And for whatever the mystery reason would be that he would be willing to not come forward with that in a murder trial. We have to see if that works for Jason and Jesse too. So with Jason, his alibis, they were flimsy. There would be different variations about like mowing his uncle's lawn. And we kind of touched on that when we were talking about Damien. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of just not get into that part of it because we seem to be in agreement, unless you insist. But we have some things here. Let's see. We'll just get into the Asian kid that Jason mentioned. There was this Asian kid witness who was playing a game at Walmart called Street Fighter 2. I remember it as a kid. The arcades were such a big thing for me. And so the name is Don Nam, and he said that he saw Damien, Dominique, and Jason on May 5th at Walmart, but he actually later said he was mistaken. And even if we took Don Nam's initial statement, let's just say if we took that as true, before he essentially retracted it, at face value, he had placed Damien and Jason with Dominique together at a place and at a time that contradicted their alibis. So, like saying like he had seen them shuffling away from Walmart, the Walmart payphone at about 6 o'clock p.m., only a little over a mile away from the crime scene, as theorized of the hours of the murders as they drew near. Per Damien and Jason settled upon story, they had split up slightly earlier and did not go to Walmart together. So Nam's first story would not have helped Jason, only hurt him. And yet Jason will continue to cite the Asian kid story as, someone that his lawyer should have called as an alibi witness. So that doesn't work. Now, Ken Watkins, his September 16th statement contradicted both Damien's alibi, that Damien was with his parents continuously from 3:45 p.m. onward that day, and at home and at the Sanders house, and Jason's alibi that Jason mowed his uncle's lawn from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m., then went to Walmart with Ken, then walked home. Now, Dennis Dent, he was a man who was dating Jason's mom at the time and lived with them. He described Jason arriving home around the time of Jason's mother's usual call from work at 9:30 p.m. And Dent indicated that the time may have been somewhat earlier, but not so early as to offer up an alibi. He also described Ken Watkins repeatedly showing up that evening looking for Jason and being disappointed that he was not home. Now, ultimately, Jason Baldwin's defense lawyers, they didn't have any confidence whatsoever in Jason's alibis, and understandably so. They did not call Herbert Bartosh. They did not call Ken Watkins, Matt Baldwin, his younger brother, or anyone that could have accounted for Jason's whereabouts on May 5th. They were all very flimsy. They contradicted each other. And Paul Ford, and I'm going to say something. I like Paul. I actually thought he was a good lawyer. I thought he was the best one out of the three, out of Dan Stidham, out of Val Price. I liked Paul Ford. And he was, like I said, the attorney who represented Jason. And, he testified that he didn't call, on them in 1994 because he said the alibis were unreliable. And Ford said that he felt the prosecutors, they would have shot holes in Jason's alibis if the witnesses took the stand. And before we get on to Jesse's, is there anything you want to comment in regards to that?
Yeah, the things that we've discussed so far can, lead people to thinking that they're guilty, based off profiling, based off alibis. And yes, I am aware, and a lot of people did say that his alibi was actually the most confusing and the worst out of all three of theirs. And also the Asian kid thing, that's just another he said, she said thing. I don't really take that into consideration because there's a lot of he said, she said things that later on in the case gets recanted. There's people who perjured themselves on the stand. I mean, it's just connecting to a lot of the other things that we need to discuss. But yeah, his alibi, it
Mhm.
wasn't great. Absolutely, they could have ripped it apart. That's absolutely true. Like I said, I'm definitely not denying that about his alibi at all.
Right. But to be fair, Jason is the one that called his initial lawyer incompetent for not putting that Asian kid on the stand. Like, that was Jason saying that. So it's not hearsay. Like, this is something that, like, Jason, he basically was criticizing Paul Ford with. And yeah, Paul Ford knew. He's like, these alibis are bullshit. So what we're going to do, we're not going to go with, trying to like prove these alibis or even try to prove your innocence. What we're going to do, and I thought it was the smartest defense strategy, we're going to keep our mouth shut. We're going to go with guilt by association with Damien, and we're going to skate free. And that to me was a very intelligent strategy. But I mean, if you would hear it from Jason, he would think otherwise. So that's why I bring up the Asian kid, because Jason is the one that seemed to have so much confidence in it.
And I'm sorry, Jason was away. What time did Jason say that the Asian kid supposedly saw them at Walmart?
Let me go back. Let me see if I have that here.
Because I have to, I want to know that just based off of I'm trying to also weigh his intelligence in my head in regards to that.
Let's see. So, yeah, there was an Asian kid witness who was playing a game at Walmart called Street Fighter 2. Dom Nam said that He had seen Damien, Dominique, and Jason on May 5th at Walmart, but later said he was mistaken. And even if we took Don Nam's initial statement before he essentially retracted at face value, he placed Damien and Jason with Dominique together at a place that contradicted their alibis, saying that he had seen them shuffling away from Walmart payphone at about 6 p.m. So it
Mm-hmm.
was before 6 p.m., but no later than 6 p.m.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, like I said, I think that yeah, the alibis were bullshit, and I do believe that the defense did take the right stance on it because they were like, "You guys can't get your alibis, Jason, your
Mhm.
alibi, like it's all over the place. You're gonna make yourself look suspicious as hell." So I believe I agree with
Mhm.
you. The defense did play it, very smart on their part, but like I said, that also really doesn't convey me towards them being guilty. I feel like there's so many factors that can go into the whole alibis thing as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and so like what I'm doing is like I don't have one particular piece that's going to prove it all. What I do is I look at totality of the evidence as everything is a puzzle piece. That one puzzle piece isn't going to show you the entire picture, but as you start putting those pieces together, you start to see an image. And so I understand. But that's something though that the thing is, if you were to talk to West Memphis Three supporters, they would just even disagree with you and go, "No, they had alibis. Their defense counsel were incompetent, and no one wanted to listen to their alibis. It's a conspiracy." And so that's why I bring up the alibis. So now we're going to get into Jessie Misskelley. After Jesse confessed on June 3rd, his father and friends they tried to build an alibi for him. So one, that Jesse was in Highland Trailer Park around 6:30 p.m. and when the police responded to a disturbance, and two, that Jesse and friends drove to a different town around 7:30 p.m. to go wrestling. So when it came to the police disturbance, three police officers who had responded to the disturbance call at Highland. One, and I hope I'm not butchering his last name, James Dollahite, Joe McCaffrey, and Jason Oliver. They testified that they did not recall seeing Jesse Jr. there. And in a TV interview after Jesse Jr.'s arrest, Jesse's father, Jesse Sr., stated that his son may have been with Damien and Jason, but he had nothing to do with killing the three boys. And that's a very odd initial statement because Jesse Jr., he testified that his DWI school class got out at 7 o'clock p.m. That night of the murders. At which point he drove home and spoke to Jesse Jr. around 7:15 p.m. And the prosecution also they called the alcohol safety class teacher in as a rebuttal witness, and she confirmed that Jesse Jr. attended on May 5th, and she recalled that she did not dismiss class until at least 15 minutes to 8 that night. And the wrestling alibi, it also doesn't hold any credibility. Fred Revell, he testified at trial that he specifically remembered that Jesse was with him that night. And that's important to know. He was with him that night of the murders. And on cross examination, the prosecutor brought up a statement that Fred Revell, sorry, had given police on June 9th, 1993, a few days after Jesse's arrest. Revell gave a reason for remembering which day Misskelley went wrestling. He needed to go pay a guy named Charles Stone for a wrestling ring. And he picked Jesse up in Highland Trailer Park around 7 o'clock p.m. He gave Stone the money and it was deposited the next day, which would have been May 6th. The problem is the prosecution produced the receipt for $300 with Fred Revell's and Charles Stone's names, and the receipt was actually dated April 27th, and that was 8 days before the murder. And of course, you have the 12 witnesses for Jesse. But the thing is, none of this stuff holds up. That's why they offered both alibis, but none of them hold up. I don't believe the 12 witnesses. I believe that they're just trying to help Jesse out. We have to come with proof to also claim that those police officers were lying, because they were saying Jessie was there. He talked to the police officers. They denied that flat out. So, thoughts regarding that?
Yeah, that alibi was kind of weird as well. I do agree with that, but I mean, there's I a lot of people, including myself, we do believe in the he was apparently at the wrestling place that night. Five people testified in total that Jesse went to the wrestling event that night, and one of the people was a brand new person that even had like no loyalty to Jesse like at all. Like I think it was like a new kid or something that joined the class, and even he was like, yeah, he was here that night, and he didn't owe Jesse anything. And I'm just talking about the five people in total that
Mhm.
I researched that testified, and also another thing is in the Bible confession, Jesse was recounting his day. Why does he even add in the fight at the trailer park when Connie Molden slapped Cody off his bike and the police were called? He wasn't even aware that that actually kind of alibied him.
Well, it wouldn't be a surprise to me if he heard about it after after the whole thing, especially if it's becoming like the trailer park event that evening. I'm sure someone the next day or even that evening later on would have told him about it. And yeah, those five witnesses, they saw Jesse. It just wasn't on May 5th. It was April 27th.
Mm. Oh well, you say tomato, I say tomato.
Agree to disagree. Okay, so
Yeah,
you know what?
like I said, like I said, the alibis, I mean, they're definitely twitchy. Even people, yeah, there's some people that are like, oh yeah, forget the alibis, like you mentioned earlier, that are pro West Memphis. But then there's people who are pro West Memphis that say, yeah, their alibis did kind of suck, but we still don't believe that they did it because there's so many other things in the case that it shows that they did not commit this murder. Well, murders. But yes, like I said, I'll admit the alibis were definitely not the strongest point.
So as it turns out, this discussion is far too vast to condense into one video. We are looking at a multi-part series now. How many? Perhaps 3 to 4 episodes. So stay tuned for part two because we are just getting started. And until then, I'm Rick Mullinax. This is Burn After Reading, and I'll catch your ass down the road.
Okay, I'm going off every chance I get. I don't really take a loss, well, I'll admit. That's why I'll make it to the top, yeah, I commit. And no, I'm never getting lost, I get after it. Investing in my own stock, cause it's faster than any crypto hits go, let me spend. Everything that you see is something I invent. And it's only a percent. I'm gonna take shots. If I miss all, forget it. I'll take a fat loss just to learn all that's in it. I'm taking snapshots, learning how to fall and get it. I'm getting back up, always stand tall, don't sweat it. I never back up, I don't miss a thing or regret it. I'm always learning, you could call me academic. I'm always working, never been apathetic. Bad energy is like a poison, needs a antiseptic.